$8 billion have been set aside to help workers and businesses struggling with the fallout of COVID-19. And this comes on top of measures set out in 4 earlier budgets. Deputy Prime Minister Heng says there are no plans to draw on past reserves for this. Now, here are the key points. So for workers and businesses, the Job Support Scheme, which offsets some wages for workers, will be extended by up to 7 months. Companies will also be incentivized to hire locals. More support too for the hardest hit sectors, including tourism. For example, Singaporeans will get $320 million worth of tourism credits to kickstart domestic consumption. And to prepare for a world beyond the pandemic, $150 million will be used to spur innovation and entrepreneurship.
The COVID-19 situation in Singapore may be under control, but Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Heng Keat says the global economy remains very weak and the government will continue helping Singaporeans rebuild from this crisis. More than 2 million local workers have benefited from the wage support scheme after it was launched in February during the budget announcement. There were multiple enhancements since, and more than $16 billion in payouts have been given. The latest move comes after experts and unions called on the government to extend the scheme, as various sectors in the economy are recovering at different rates. Mr. Heng says the support under JSS Now is more targeted. That's because the scheme draws heavily on the country's resources and it is not sustainable at current levels. Aviation and tourism are the hardest hit and will receive 50% in wage support for 7 more months. Other industries like the built environment sector will receive the same level of support, but for 2 more months before the assistance is reduced next year. Sectors that are managing well, such as financial services, will receive 10% in wage support until the end of the year. Mr. Heng adds that even at this level of support, the payouts cover more than half of employers' CPF contributions. This ensures workers are still building on their savings amid the pandemic.
I urge all businesses to make full use of this additional support, to retain and upskill your workers, and to transform your operations for the post-COVID-19 world. This will enable you to spring back faster when the recovery comes. For firms that are coping well, I encourage you to return or donate your JSS payouts. Nearly 600 firms have already done so, and I thank them for their sense of community.
And to create new jobs in growing sectors, Mr. Heng announced a new initiative aimed at mature workers. The labour movement had previously identified this segment as a vulnerable group of employees. That's why the government is pumping $1 billion to help firms hire such local workers by the end of the year. However, Mr. Heng notes that despite potential innovation in some industries, the overall labour market is likely to stay weak.
Even with our best efforts, retrenchments will be inevitable. As our labour movement puts it, we cannot protect every job, but we will protect every worker. For those of you who have fallen hard times, we'll continue to support you and walk this journey with you.
Mr. Heng says the Responsible Retrenchment Advisory will be updated and the COVID-19 support grant for unemployed Singaporeans extended. More aid will also be available for low-wage workers with the expansion of the workfare special payment eligibility.